Bro, how do I how do I forget to do this every time? I'm sorry. Welcome back to some more Higurashi, boys. Last time, very I was trying to say fun. I mean it's fun because it's a really good segment, but yeah, Ritu died. Turns out the Griffies we killed 20 years ago was plotting its revenge, and you know, it was a good idea to take over Ritu's body. That's definitely caused mental damage, but Hanyu pulled through, and Riku's strong will also helped Hanyu, helped restrain the Griffies and helped Hanyu finish it off for good. So that mortal enemy is gone, but Hanyu's alone, with Oka, obviously. I guess Shino's probably gonna be around to help, but it's definitely kind of rough. Let's see how Hanyu's life goes on without Riku. Spring. The freshly fallen cherry blossoms dyed the swept stone staircase pink as if it come to life. The, clean, the cleanness and glamour of it all cheered me up a little as I ascended the stairs. I looked up to find the cherry blossoms in full bloom. It had a dim, beautiful pattern, similar to a weeping willow tree, and a sweet smell was very refreshing. What do they mean by that? The cherry blossoms have a similar pattern to the weeping willow tree? How? And I'm just trying to imagine that in my head. I can't. I allowed myself to be taken in by the nostalgic scenery as I slowly marched down the shrine grounds and savored the clear air. Suddenly, I looked up at the shrine, standing tall at the edge of the grounds. The villagers must have courteously maintained that building so old you could feel the history and off of it. Though it was withered, it also had a fine, subtle air to it. It had been 10 years since that day? We hit a 10-year time skip? Oh shit. Okay, never mind. Thought we were gonna see like some I mean I guess we're flashing back now. But okay. Once the sun dawned on that nightmare of a night, the villagers gathered weapons, formed a cabal, and went to Onidofuchi Swamp. It was there they found a vast number of bandits' corpses, the body of Riku, who collapsed as though he died opposing them, and the torn remains of a Mito outfit. When they witnessed the tragedy, they recalled how they suspected the Furude Shrine's priest's wife of being a demon the other day and were shocked. Their own suspicions had driven the Furudes into a corner, and so the two of them had fought a group of passing bandits posing as demons in order to prove their innocence, only to lose their lives. Aw, poor Shino. When she came running after hearing the news, Shino clung to the corpse and broke down, sobbing. Afterwards, the village conducted a search for Riku's wife. However, it was said her blood and footprints came to an abrupt end at a cliff overlooking a river. The villagers concluded that she had likely fallen from there with a bandit. Shino's despair deepened when she learned of that, and she wailed in ways that those who knew her stout-hearted nature had never seen from her before. So Hani never returned to the villagers, huh? Interesting. When they saw that, the villagers learned their needless doubts had killed the two of them, and deeply regretted their own mistakes. Perhaps to atone for that, the couple orphaned daughter, Ota, was taken care of as the daughter of the village's saviors. And under the guardianship of the Kimiyoshi family, spearheaded by Shino, and the Sonozaki family, the village's officials, she was raised carefully so she could run the Furude Shrine on her own when she became of age. All I could do was watch all over that. After my battle with the demon, I lost most of my ability to sustain a physical body. Oh, so she just literally couldn't stay, huh? Though I wasn't quite a free body, it was difficult to maintain a body that could be seen even by the people of this land, and so naturally I was treated as though I'd gone missing. Perhaps there was a mental aspect to it as well. It was likely that if I pushed myself without having to fully recovered, there was a risk of my body going berserk. So I wished for Ota's happiness as they went over to the mainland, underwent treatment at the remaining Lionosis, while fighting Griffys called demons, or humans posing as them. I won't speak of how much blood was shed. Even so, as long as there were evildoers out there, more tragedies like Riku's could happen again. Taking the hero route. It was with that thought I used as much strength and time as I had left to nip those disasters in the bud and wander various countries. Based, honestly. Feel bad for Ota, but there's not much she can do about it. I smiled when that thought came to me. I suddenly looked up, saw the cherry blossom tree Riku and I used to watch, quietly walked over to it, and gently caressed the bark. I recall when Riku and I discussed Michizane's poem. Hey, Riku.
ひょっとして私の中にもあなた方の同胞の魂魄が眠っているのでしょうか。
大丈夫ですよ、リク。今のあなたはあなた本来の魂魄によるものです。
If there really is a heaven.
私はあなたが好きです。
私もきっとあなたのこと好きなんだと思います。だから今の冗談が許せない。
Then perhaps these trees keep blossoming every year to let me know you're doing well.
これからはもう少し改めます。だから返事をもらえますか。
後悔するのになんで私はこんな人を愛して。
Just like I keep living on with my feelings and memories of you. I'm sad. Already making me sad. It's just starting the video.
リク、ちょっとだけ泣きますね。
It's strange. Up until just a little while ago, the mere thought of Riku was enough to make me sob uncontrollably. Yet now, I don't even cry, unless I taint our happiest memories with sorrow like this. Is that because I've grown strong? Or am I simply growing numb to it? Even I'm not sure. Even so, my feelings for Riku live in my heart, as strong as ever, never fading. The flow of time has become so distant to me that I can remember the days I spent with him as though they were as they were only yesterday.
リク。
Would I have been better off never meeting Riku? Had I not fallen for and married him, could I have avoided feeling this way? Not once had I ever felt any regrets like that. I truly was glad I'd met Riku, because there's no mistaking that he was the one who gave me and showed me the way to live as myself. When I muttered that, a pink petal gently danced onto my shoulder. The way it smelled as sweet as it had back then drew a smile from me. Russell. Meep? Oh shit. Okay, it looks like Oka is. Got some Rika traits. Got meeped on. Just then, I slowly turned around when I sensed footsteps behind me, only to follow up with a bitter smile. What was I even doing? It wasn't like anyone could see me. However, yo! Okay, she's literally identical to Rika. That's cool. When I finished turning around, I found a wide-eyed little girl standing there. She cocked her head as she smiled innocently and looked at me. That face, that gaze, I remembered them well. There was no way I could ever forget.
見えるのですか、私を。
はいなのです。
She's already nanodesoing.
お父さんの木に何かご用なのですか？
When I heard that, I stared at the brightly smiling little girl as I desperately held back the feelings threatening to burst forth, took a breath, and smiled back at her. She blinked in surprise for a moment, then smiled cheerfully as though she'd rebounded and gave a hearty leap.
はじめましてですね。私はあなたたちがお社様と呼ぶこの神社の守り神です。
That's a way to introduce yourself without saying you're her parent, her mother.
あなたは
オオカなのです。
Okay.
フルでオオカなのですよ。
Shinipod.
ニパ
Shinipaws. What the heck? It's actually hereditary. Who knew? You think Rita's mom Nipah back in the day? Or maybe because Rita is like the closest to Hanyu, like because I'm guessing this version, Oka and like Rita are the two like people like closest to Hanyu. So maybe they only have the Nipah gene. And thus, my frozen time began to slowly move again. Excuse me? It's only been 13 minutes. Ten more years later? Dude, we're jumping. She's 20. It's an old Ota. The cries of the birds and cicadas that had been ringing out until just a moment ago ceased, and a tense air filled the shrine grounds. The trees rustled, their branches and leaves swaying in a sudden breeze. Sunlight shone through the trees onto the lawn, damp from the morning dew, sparkling as though countless particles of light were dancing. Whoa! What is that? It's kind of cursed, but I like it. It's like Rika does keep her hair long, like we do see in the after credits thing. Or Ota, I should say, but yeah. That could be a thumbnail, honestly. Didn't she still Meeps? Amidst all of that, a woman dressed in Mito robes, Ota Furude caught her breath as she held a wooden sword at the ready. Then she shuffled her feet forward and closed the gap between her and the giant trees standing tall in front of her. A hot breath of air faintly echoed from her small mouth. Ota shifted the left side of her body forward in time with those breaths, then held her left hand out and pulled out the sword in her right hand back to her side, holding it as if she were drawing a bow. I watched her with bated breath. Even so, Ota bit her lip and stared straight ahead as though she'd forgotten I was here, and then... He still sounds tiny though, even as a 20-year-old. Ota expelled that breath, kicked off the ground with all her might, and charged forward in one swift motion. She thrust her sword forward, and with that momentum, and struck the tree trunk fiercely with all her weight behind the blow. Ksh! A dry thud echoed, and the nearby birds all hurriedly took off flying in surprise. Ota remained still for a while with her sword sticking out of the tree, but before long she heaved a breath and withdrew her sword. Then she took a hand towel from a nearby tree and wiped the sweat off her brow, and she looked at me and smiled. That she's getting called Hanyu now, even though she introduced herself as Oyashiro-sama.
以前見せてもらった月にだいぶ近づいてきたと思うのだけど。
確かに形としては随分様になっていますね。
I shrugged with a bitter smile as I desperately hid the surprise I felt deep down. The technique Ota had just unleashed was a thrust from the Turyu Dalkia pose, 3 Earths? I think that's what it was called. The one-hand thrust killer technique I developed to use against Griffies. But I still couldn't believe it. It took me considerable time to learn this technique. I'd acquired it through repeated trial and error, including in battle, and it took so much blood, sweat, and tears before I finally got it down. Damn, she has some talent, huh? Thrusting techniques are actually harder than slashing techniques. If the target is too close, the power of the thrust is greatly reduced, and if they're too far, it hurts your entire arm. Furthermore, you need the skill to keep the thrust's trajectory completely straight, something extremely difficult to grasp with a real sword, much less a wooden one. So, I thought it was too early for her, which is why I only demonstrated it to her a few times, never actually teaching her or letting her try it out. Yet, while it was incomplete, Ota had performed it splendidly. As I circled around the tree, she pierced and examined the wood. The shockwaves from the thrust had carried over to the other side and popped the bark off. Truly splendid. Such skill was rare even in the seasoned warriors on the front lines.
進む道を間違えましたね、オーカ。あなたはむしろ漁師に仕えて現実の師範代を目指した方が良かったのかもしれません。
She's a battle maiden.
じゃあこれからはちゃんと月も教えてくれる？
まあいいでしょう。ですが剣技は何よりも基礎が大切です。見た目の派手さにとらわれず、今までに教えたこともしっかり守るように。いいですね。
はい、わかりました、お師匠様。
Master. Ota held her hand to her mouth and laughed in a cute voice as clear as a bell. It had been 10 years since then. Ota, who was still a child when I reunited with her, was now a fully grown woman. She'd stopped saying Meep and Nipah! No! Like she used to, and her once tiny body was now almost as tall as mine. Come to think of it, her motions has also gained a certain luster to them. I'm sure that's because having a child brought out her charm as a woman. Oh, she already had a kid?
私の子が
Damn. That's pretty young at 20, but I guess like back then in the olden days, that's common, right? You just get married off at like 16 or younger. My heart suddenly welled with sentimentality. You're a grandmother, Hanyu! For me, it had only been 10 years, but that was more than enough time for people to change. Can you hear that? Probably not. Cicadas are full blast today. It's a good sign. I recalled the day we reunited. Cute little Ota, standing under the cherry blossom tree. I could remember that sight as if it were only yesterday. And now, here she was, already 21 years old. Okay. Off by 1 year. Made me realize, once again, just how much time flies when you're having fun. Flashback? Yep. On that day, I reunited with Ota on the Furude Shrine grounds. But truth be told, I've been planning to leave quickly. Just getting to see the old cherry blossom tree and knowing Ota was doing well would have been enough for me. So, when I happened to bump into Ota herself by coincidence and learned she could see me, I admit I was surprised, but I no longer had any regrets. That was what I told myself before coming here, but...
神様、もしよかったら僕の家に来ませんか?
It was little Ota's words that stopped me from leaving.
僕はずっと一人暮らしをしているのです。ですから、お話し相手になってくれるととても嬉しいのですよ。
一人暮らし
I was a bit surprised to hear that. Wasn't Ota supposed to have been raised by the Kimyoshis under Shino's care?
あなたしのお母さんは
Meep?
母様も父様ももういないのです。だからこの神社は僕一人なのですよ。
According to Ota, she had indeed been living with the Kimyoshis until a short while ago, raised by Shino and her family. But after she turned 10 2 weeks ago, she told her foster parents that she would be living by herself at Furude Shrine. Damn, they were hardcore back then, leaving the house at 10 years old. It's crazy.
どうして寂しくはないのですか?
少しは寂しいのです。でも、ここは母様と父様が大切にしていた場所なのです。だから、僕がきちんと守っていこうと決めたのですよ。
この家を出てフルデの家で暮らす?
This was flashback in a flashback.
本気で言ってるの?
Honestly, if I was taking care of a child, I don't think I would let them leave at 10 years old. That's kind of insane. I mean, luckily this is a small village and everyone like really, really respects her. So like, I don't think anything bad would happen to her from other people. But it's still dangerous just letting a 10-year-old live by herself. I'm sure they check on her, obviously, but still, it's kind of crazy.
シノさんたちのおかげで身の回りのことはきちんとできるようになりました。ですから僕はフルデ家の当主としてあの神社を守っていきたいのです。
守ってって。王か、あなたはまだ10歳なのよ。
That's fair. It's a fair
それ
opinion.
に、君吉の家にいたままでも神事を取り仕切っておくことはできるはずでしょ。
ごめんなさいなのです。もう決めたのですよ。
When she saw that strong will beyond her years in Ota's eyes, even Shino couldn't refuse her, and fell silent. Then she heaved a sigh, and voiced a worry that suddenly came to mind.
ひょっとしてオーカ、この
Nah,
家で暮らすの
no
は
way.
窮屈だったの？
She's too wholesome for
私
that.
たちがあなたの本当の家族じゃないから。
そんなことはないのです。しのさんもりょうさんも優しくて、和也さんも庄司さんも僕をとても可愛がってくれました。僕にとってはみんな大切な家族なのです。
じゃあなぜ？
人が住まなくなった家はすぐに朽ち果てると誰かから聞きました。
True, it is both literally and like spiritually.
フルデの家もすっかりボロボロになっていました。
Bring back the glory of the Frudays. It happened a few days ago. While she was cleaning the shrine, Ota took a look inside the house she had been born in and was rendered speechless for a while. The whole place reeked with layers of dust, and spiderwebs strung across the beams. From the living room to the kitchen, and even the entryway. The paper doors were full of holes, and the house had marks of weather damage and overgrowth. So physically, the house... I thought they would be maintaining it, honestly, but... yeah. The estate was in shambles. There were no signs of life anywhere, much less any specks of its former glory. Meep? She was sad. Ota had only lived there when she was a baby, so she barely remembered it. Even though it was indeed the place where she lived with her parents, and had a lot of memories attached to it. But after only being abandoned for a few years, it had been reduced to this. Ota couldn't get those images out of her head, even after she went home.
オーカ、
父様と母様のことはあまりはっきりと思い出すことができません。でもあの家の暖炉を囲みながら二人は僕を見て笑っていました。だからその思い出を僕は荒れ果てたところに置いておきたくないのですよ。
Shino gently wiped her tears with her sleeve. Ota truly was their daughter. That kindness and deep empathy were just like Riku's and Hanyu's.
家のことをすべて一人でやっていくのは大変よ。多分あなたが思っている以上にその覚悟はあるの？
本当はまだ不安がいっぱいですが、できるところまで僕は頑張ってみたいのです。お願いしますのです。
わかった。そこまでの決心ならもう止めません。時々庄司を手伝いにやるから納得がいくまでやってみなさい。
ありがとうなのです。
There you go. That's
シノ
nice.
さん。
Nice of them.
それから辛くなったり寂しくなったりしたらいつでも遠慮なく帰ってきなさい。
Sorry. Allergies are still killing me. I'm so blocked up with phlegm.
あなたはフルデ家の当主。でも間違いなく君吉家の一員で 私の可愛い娘なんですからね。
はいなのです。
There you go. I felt something hot welling in my eyes from her resolve. Not only had she not forgotten us, she treasured her memories with us even at her age. Very mature, honestly. What a kind and strong-willed girl. I looked up at the sky as my heart welled with pride and love, as I desperately held back the tears that threatened to burst free. If I could, I want to tell her right here and now that I was her mother. If that was impossible, then I at least wanted to embrace her small body. But I could no longer.
神様、どうかしたのですか？
Ota said that and looked at me with bleary eyes. She cocked her head adorably, like a baby animal. Just seeing that face wrenched my heart, and I almost forgot to even breathe. And when I quickly looked away from her, Ota tilted her head again, confused by my reaction, and brought her face even closer.
どうしたのですか？神様。
いえ。
まるで怯えた猫さんみたいなのです。にゃーにゃー、ニパー。
Jesus.
別にそんな
Meow
ことは。
meow. True. There's no way that should be true. Deep down, maybe I was scared at having to face my guilt for abandoning Ota and the foolishness of my actions. Regardless of how it happened, I left Ota in Shino's hand and left this village. That fact wouldn't change. That guilt and remorse still tormented me and tore at my heart. I had no right to stand in front of her after all this time. That was why I should leave this place quickly. And yet, my legs wouldn't move. I couldn't do it. Unable to resist the desire to look at her cute face a little longer, I couldn't bring myself to say goodbye to her.
では、決まりなのです。僕の家はこっちなのです。中でお話ししましょうなのですよ。ニパー。
Nipah. After saying that, Ota took my hand. It was so small and pale. Though she shouldn't have been all that strong, I could feel through her grip how she didn't want me to leave.
温かい。
Damn, so she can hold her too, even though she's ghost form. The warmth I'd forgotten over 10 years seeped into my hand. When I noticed that sensation, I gently gripped her hand back. Don't squeeze too hard.
ニパー。
Perhaps pleased that I reciprocated, Ota grinned from ear to ear and skipped as though dancing. Ah, she really is the cute girl I'd always imagined her to be. And
ところで神様。
ああ、はい。
I couldn't quite tell if she was referring to me, but I responded to be safe. Yes, she is referring to you, obviously. Then Ota looked at me with wide eyes and tilted her head as she asked a question.
神様は神様というお名前なのですか？
Well, she introduced herself as a Yashiro-sama, but I guess this is where she dropped upon you.
いえ、違います。
だったらお社様がお名前なのですか？
皆からはそう呼ばれています。でも、それは名前では。
では、何というお名前なのですか？
I feel like it's obvious though, because she would probably know what her real mother's name is, right? If she says Hanyu. I was bewildered by her sudden question and found myself at a loss for an answer. I couldn't very well tell her I was Hanyu. There we go. Ota should know that was her mother's name. But her mother had died 10 years ago. So if I told her here and now that I was her mother, I'd have to reveal the secrets of her birth that were best left unknown.
それに
In the first place, I abandoned any right I had to call myself a mother on that day. Someone as heartless and irresponsible as that had no place calling herself a mother. So my current name was...
ハイリウン・イエアソムール・ジェダ。それが私の名前です。
Damn. No way Ota didn't say that. After leaving Ota in the village behind, I had once again lived for my duty, exterminating demonified Griffies. The name I had once abandoned was perfectly apt for who I was now.
りゅう
Yeah,
ハイリウン・イエアソムール・ジェダです。
I don't blame her. Even Riku is struggling with it and he's a grown-ass man.
言いづらいお名前なのですよ。もっと簡単なお名前になりませんのですか？
Ota kept holding my hand as she kept awkwardly trying to say the name she heard. But she furrowed her brow and frowned when she couldn't do it. That sight overlapped with someone I'd seen before, or of something that happened at the mountain spring I'd bathed in. That moment when he gave me my new name. It was a nostalgic and very painful memory. Seriously, why? Why wasn't I kinder to him? Why couldn't I have been more true to myself?
いいことを思いつきま
Oh,
した。
same idea as Riku.
え
Just then, Ota, who had been racking her brain for a while, suddenly gave me a huge grin and looked up again. I suddenly got deja vu of that day I first met Riku. Ota's smile was so like his that I gasped for a moment.
羽生羽生と呼んでもいい
There
で
you
すか？
go. Like father, like daughter.
神様のお名前ととても似ているのです。僕の一番大切な人の名前なのですよ。
私が羽生？
そうなのです。よろしくなのですよ、羽生。
Nipah. Ota called me Hanyu with a smile. Drawn in by her smile, I found myself unable to refuse or do anything but fall silent. Ba, 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 ba. In the 10 years I'd been separated from Ota, I constantly hunted demonified Griffies without rest. In the midst of that, I resented it irrationally. I'd have a hatred that never died down, and as a result, no matter how much I fought and swung my sword, it never healed the void of sorrow and loneliness in my heart. The reason I decided to return to Onikafuchi village was because my heart and body were exhausted. That was why Ota's words were so precious and luscious to me. And so, I accepted them, knowing I'd surely come to regret it. That was how Ota started calling me Hanyu. She had no idea that I was her mother, nor did she ever need to know. Boom. I think this is a pretty good spot to end this episode. You know, we're still pretty early in the chapter, so it kind of rounds out nicely. Thank you guys for watching. This was, again, another emotional chapter. I think this might be my favorite arc so far of the console arcs. I don't know. It's hard to choose, but this highlights some really good emotional highs, some good comedy bits, action, surprisingly, like fighting action. Uh, it's been a fun ride, and we'll continue next time with some more Higurashi. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe if you want to help out the channel. Peace.